I was going to say I'm really fired up to talk about this book, but thinking about what happens in this book, I don't know if that's the best phrasing to use. There is something profoundly cynical, my friends, in the notion of paradise after death. The lure is evasion. The promise is excusative. One need not accept responsibility for the world as it is, and by extension, one need do nothing about it. To strive for change, for true goodness in this mortal world. That this mortal reality has purpose in itself. One must acknowledge and accept with one's own soul that its greatest value is not for us, but for our children and their children. To view life as but a quick passage along a foul, tortured path, made foul and tortured by our own indifference, is to excuse all manner of misery and depravity, and to exact cruel punishment upon the innocent lives to come. I defy this notion of paradise beyond the gates of bone. If the soul truly survives the passage, then it behooves us, each of us, my friends, to nurture a faith in similitude. What awaits us is a reflection of what we leave behind, and in the squandering of our mortal existence, we surrender the opportunity to learn the ways of goodness. The practice of sympathy, empathy, compassion, and healing all pass by in our rush to arrive at a place of glory and beauty. A place we did not earn, and most certainly do not deserve. Choice is an illusion. Freedom is conceit. The hands that reach out to guide your every step, your every thought, come not from the gods, for they are no less deluded than we. No, my friends, those hands come to each of us, from each of us. When you've burned the bridges behind you, don't go starting a fire on the one in front of you. Hey, what's up, bookworms and bone hunters? Mike back to talk about the 6th book in the Malazan read-along. This is, of course, The Bonehunters by Steven Erikson, the 6th book in Malazan, Book of the Fallen. Guys, this will be a standard spoiler-free review for The Bonehunters. The reason I'm continuing to do spoiler-free reviews for this is because this series has a high tap-out rate. And there are people who get to this point in the series and are like, I don't know, I've kind of struggled with the last book. Is it worth it for me to keep going? So I'm going to keep making these spoiler-free reviews until we get to the very, very end. If you're looking for some spoiler talk, I've talked over an hour about this book in spoilers. So there's plenty of content for you to find there if you're looking for it. Now with this book, I loved Midnight Tides. I was kind of iffy on House of Chains. Midnight Tides felt like I got the ship back on track. So did this continue that trend? Or did things go back the way they were? Well, let's talk about it, guys. Let's begin with what is the book about. The Seven Cities Rebellion has been crushed and Shaik is dead. One last rebel force remains, holed up in the city of Egaton and under the command of Leoman of the Flails. The prospect of laying siege to this ancient fortress makes the battle-weary Malazan 14th Army uneasy, for it was here that the Empire's greatest champion, Dasa Multor, was slain. But elsewhere, agents of a far greater conflict have made their opening moves. The crippled god has been granted a place in the pantheon. A schism threatens, and sides must be chosen. Whatever each god decides, the ground rules have changed irrevocably, terrifyingly, and first blood spilled will be the mortal world. Two ancient wanderers, Ikariam and Mappo, each searching for such a fate as they might fashion with their own hands, guided by their will. If only the gods would leave them alone. But now that the knives have been unsheathed, the gods are disinclined to be kind. There shall be war, and war in the heavens. And the prize? Well, nothing less than existence itself. Guys, 2006, this is The Bonehunters. Now let's do like always, guys. What makes it good or bad? We're going to start with the good because I'm a very positive person. The good here, guys. Convergence, finally. Yes, everyone that I joked about with the, if you get to book number 6, it all starts to come together. And I'm like, so you really want me to read like 4,000 pages before I decide if I like where this is going? I can see where they're coming from now, guys, because this was the first time reading a Malazan book where I wasn't like, who are these people? I mean, there are some new characters, but it is like 90-10. Characters that you know up to this point so far. So I think that helped a ton with feeling like it was easy to slip back into this universe. This is the first time where I wasn't frustrated for book 1 or book 2 of one of these books. So very exciting stuff there. The Convergence is as advertised, guys. You're going to see all these characters that you've grown to be either love or hate or whatever so far up into the series, and I think that you're going to be happy that you're just putting on a familiar pair of sweatpants. You're going to feel like you're right back at home, and you don't have to have the big old wall of, I don't know who these people are, why should I care this time? Because you're already going to know who you like, who you don't like, and you know what? Your mind might even be changed on a few of them. For me, guys, one of the greatest things, the return of Mappo and Ikariam. This was 2 of my favorite characters in the series. I love them in Deadhouse Gates. They're a big reason why Deadhouse Gates has been my favorite book in the series up to this point. And then when they kind of had a cameo appearance in book number 4, I was kind of bummed. I was like, is this what's going to happen? There's going to be these wandering travelers, and they're just going to kind of cross paths with someone and then be, in and out of each story now. Is that kind of what we're going to do with them? I was hoping not. Well, no. I am happy to say it does not. They are both in this book, and they both have significant roles. Much more significant, I think, for Ikariam than Mappo, but again, very significant roles. I think it's great what's going on with these 2. I'm loving the storyline still, and it continues to find a way to be ever more heartbreaking than it was even in Deadhouse Gate. So I'm excited to continue following these characters here, and they are great in this book. So if you like those 2 characters, you're going to get more of what you loved about them last time with a nice little spin on it. And then we got Carson. I got Carson Orlong, the shining light of House of Chains. Well, he is back here, and he continues to be the stand-in for Conan the Cimmerian. I love this character. If you don't like the character, it might not matter to you very much in this book. I think where he's headed might actually get your interest a little more than House of Chains. But if you were one of those who weren't really wild about him in House of Chains, I don't know how you're going to feel about his antics in this book, but he has a few of those just badass Carson moments. In fact, that's the only moments he has. That's the only gear that Carson has is badass, in my opinion. The guy just continues to just wreck everything he comes into contact with in a great, great way. And he's got a nice little partner this time in Dev Samar, and I think that the companionship between those 2 is unique. I won't say that I'm cheering for these guys or anything like that. Just the relationship that they have is very believable, very fun, and having someone to bounce off just how wild Karsa is really a nice touch here. But I love it. I love what Karsa does in this book, and I'm very anxious to see where it's going. I do like that there are some tiny tidbits about the Kachane. Now, I've said that I thought the Kachane Chamal were some of the coolest things in the series so far, and I felt like they were just kind of like, okay, well, yeah, they almost seem like they're like a relic. It's like the Dwemer when you're playing a Elder Scrolls game, and you hear so much about them, but they're gone kind of thing. But I got that glimmer of hope that Mr. Erikson's going to bring them back, full stop. Because there are some things presented in here that are very, very cool. Lots more stuff about the Kachane and the Skykeeps. So if you guys were interested in that part in Memories of Ice, I think you're going to like what's coming here. I hope, with 4 books left in the series, that we're going to get a little more into them, and I'm going to actually see a return of this race instead of having to read prequel novels or sequel spinoffs or anything like that. But then these 10, I'm hoping to see that race again because I find them completely fascinating. I think this guy is the big thing here. This has absolutely, without a doubt, the coolest battle in this entire series at this point. And you might think it's hyperbole. It's not, guys. This is one of the best battles I've read in all of fantasy. It's that good. It is an incredible chapter. It's like 120 pages. I think it is on par with something like The Last Battle in the Wheel of Time. It's that good. It really is just special. Now, I think there's kind of different there because with Wheel of Time, I mean, you had 14 books of culmination. You had so many characters in that. This doesn't have every character that you've grown attached to in the series, but there's a lot of them. But it's just the way that it's written. It's written so incredibly well, almost like this sense of major awe and then followed by a sense of super serious claustrophobia. And it's just, you got to see what's going on here to understand. But it's great, guys. I talk way more about it in my spoiler talk, but yeah, it's just superb. I can't think of another word for it. It's beautifully written. It never ever once feels like, okay, this is getting kind of dragging. There's even like a tripping ball scene that's actually really amazing with it. But yeah, it's one of those things. If you like the Joe Abercrombie thing where he like shifts point of views between characters in like a major catastrophe or event, I think you'll like this chapter quite a bit. It's the most I've enjoyed any battle in the series so far, and it's one of those things, like the further I get away from it, the more I love it. It's just one of those things it's cinematic. I think you just will absolutely eat it up. The full resolution of the rebellion from Deadhouse Gates and House of Chains, you get that here, and I wouldn't say it's wholly satisfying, but it's satisfying enough. There's some things that happen with Leoman in this. It's just like, oh my God, are you serious? So if you were kind of iffy on that character in House of Chains and Deadhouse Gates, you're going to get a resolution to that. You're getting a resolution to all that stuff, including Felison the Younger and people like that. You're going to get all of these things that were kind of left hanging from House of Chains really solved in kind of a satisfying way, I think. But there are some things I'm still kind of, we'll see. Remains to be seen. But you will get that resolution here, and you won't have. I was hoping that wasn't going to be taken all the way to the end of the series, so I'm glad it kind of feels like it's the end of the second arc here, or maybe I think maybe the next book might be the end of the second arc. If there are 3 arcs in this 10-book series, which is what I've been told a lot, I'm thinking we're coming up either with it now or at the end of book 7. It kind of depends, because there's some big threads left hanging in this one that I feel like are going to go right into Reaper's Gale. But that's, again, conjecture on my behalf. I don't know yet. Another cool thing about this, and I really gushed about this in the spoiler talk, is I think something that Steven Erikson does incredibly well is he will have characters that are just there in the background. And you know their names because you see their names come up a lot, but don't really know very much about them. And then a book will come up where he just has them front and center, and he develops them just awesome. There are 2 characters in this, Bottle and Karab, or characters I was kind of like, but they really just get their moment in this, and they really take center stage. It's done really, really well. I think Karab is the first one since Gruntle where I was like, I don't care about this character, to all of a sudden I'm like, holy shit, this is a top 10 character. I'm really excited to see what goes on with these characters going forward. I like Karab a little more than Bottle. Bottle does some things in this that are really, really what make this series a series. It makes it unique, because there's some of the things that he's able to do in this. But yeah, just again, the way he's able to take these background characters, bring them to the forefront, and now they feel every bit as important as our main players, I guess you'd say. That's a hell of a talent. I think it's just amazing that he's able to continue doing that. Again, I love that he introduces characters, and you're just like you're supposed to just know them, and you grow to give a shit about them over time, like you would real people. And stuff like this too. You have people that, okay, I know them, they're like a friend of a friend kind of thing. And then you actually get to know them, and then you become friends. It's just like that. I think that's just a wonderful way that he develops characters, and it continues to be very, very strong here. And then there's some characters that you hate. But guys, this has some of the most hated characters in the series return. I'm not going to tell you who they are, because I want it to be a surprise for you like it was for me. But there's some characters I think you might have hated early on in the series, where you're going to see them again. And yes, your hate is going to be magnified by a million, I think, because they don't do much more likable things here. I love that there's another big showdown. It seems like every other book we get this big showdown between Kalam and Pearl, and you get the biggest one yet in this one, and I think it's very, very satisfying. So that's all I can really say about that. But Kalam or Ganos is probably MVP of this book as far as like the action star, the one who gets stuff done when all the chips are down. It's time, nut cutting time. They get stuff done. I think one of those two, either one I'm not gonna say is probably like the MVP of this book. Not my favorite character in the book, but probably like my MVP as far as getting shit done. Those 2 guys, they're the wolf from Pulp Fiction. They're the ones you call when you want to get stuff taken care of, I think. I think that also Apsalar and Ganos, they both have, you think about where these characters were in Guardians of the Moon and where they are at the end of this book, and you're like, what an incredible character arc for both of these characters. Really is, because when I was still doing my top 10 characters for each book, I stopped doing that because they weren't getting a lot of interest. Anyway, I think that when I didn't put Ganos on my top 10 after Guardians of the Moon, people were like, oh my God, how could you not? And I had to ask them, guys, your first time reading the book, what did you feel like this? And they're all coming from a place where they know what these characters do the rest of the series. So I can see now why people feel that way. And that's going to happen. I have to read it first, right, guys? But yeah, very, very satisfying. But I think for me, one of those things is it previews some events, guys, that are coming. And I assume Reaper Scale. Now, you never know with Malazan because they can have the thing where you think, oh, that's probably going to happen next book, and then you don't see them again for 3 books. I assume, based off of who was on the cover of Reaper's Gale, that the events that we're angling towards at the end of this book are going to happen in the next one. And they concern Kars, they concern Akarium, and they concern a certain little emperor from Midnight Tide. So I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm really, really excited for Reaper's Gale. And yeah, we're going to be starting that one, in the beginning of December. So looking forward to it. Let's talk about a couple of the bad things here. And as always, guys, are going to be kind of subjective to you here, because these are some things that might have bothered me. They might not bother you. Military fantasy continues just to be a struggle for me. I cannot make myself get attached to anybody in the 14th that weren't previously a bridge burner. If it isn't Absalar, if it isn't Fiddler, if it isn't Kalam, if it isn't Quickbend, I really don't care. I've tried to get attached to some of these characters, and I think that was just my struggle with House of Chains, is that I just really never could get attached to those characters. And I understand that's why House of Chains was like it was. He wanted you to get connected to these characters before some of them started dropping like cooked flies in this book. So I get that, and I think that's why House of Chains would probably be the book that would benefit the most from a reread, because right now, that's still like my black eye in the series. I've enjoyed everything about this series, really, except House of Chains has been like my one struggle with the series because it was so heavily on the 14th, and I cannot make myself care so far. But again, that's just going to be a me thing. I think it is just my House of Chains PTSD. But I think Tavor is just a character. I don't know. I think Tavor and Lysine continue just to be the most frustrating characters in this book because unless I'm recalling correctly, we've never gotten inside their heads. Stevens has never given us a point of view from those two characters. You're just seeing them from everyone else's point of view. Lysine, I have no idea what's going on with this chick at all. Again, watch the spoiler talk for my gripes about that. And with Tavor, it's just you're always hearing what everybody else thinks about her. You don't know what she's actually thinking. So I'm sure that's by design, and I know this is a very important character for the remainder of the series, but as of right now, I just feel the same as I did in House of Chains. I'm just like, whatever. But, there are moments towards the end of this book where I'm like, well, I hope that character makes it out. So, I mean, maybe that's the beginning of the turn. We'll see. But let's get into, guys, why I think that you guys should read it. Say you're continuing with this series, and you're like, man, I don't know. I'm still struggling even after Midnight Tides. Well, guys, this is the book that you have been waiting for. Because, like I said, Convergence, it all starts to make sense now, and you're happy to see all these characters in the same place, seeing the character crossover. It's like you're having your big MCU event. You're having all your characters crossover now, and you're feeling really, really good about it. Because you have those times where you're like, hey, I wonder what would happen if Karsa met blank. I wonder what happened if Ganos ran into this person. Guys, it happens in this book, and it's really, really awesome. So I think that it's what makes this book so fast-paced. And you look at this big, humongous book, and you think there's no way that book can be fast-paced. I read it in 12 days, guys, because I couldn't put it down. It was really, really fast-paced. I really think in the 4 books in here, books 1 through 3, flew through it. Book 4 was the first time I think it got kind of like, we're getting back to that stuff where I'm like, I don't know what's going on right now. But for the most part, guys, the book is the first one in the series. I think it's very straightforward. Makes sense for the most part. You're never gonna be like, I don't understand what's going on right now. You'll understand what's going on at least through the first 1,000 pages. So I will take those odds every single time. But guys, just like character crossover, humongous battles that are just epic as hell, and arc completion. You get some completed arcs here that I think we've been waiting for since Guardians of the Moon, and they're very, very satisfying. But if you've made it this far, guys, please keep going because everything is finally falling into place, and I think you're going to be happy that you kept going. Now, if I got some final thoughts here, guys, this is perfectly paced. This book does never have a part where I'm like, I want to put this down and not pick it up again for a while. Never had that feeling one time. Yeah, I had some the good old Malazan frustration in book number 4 in this, but it was more in a way this time of like, okay, I don't understand what's going on, but I'm compelled, is more of like, this doesn't make sense and I don't know why I should care. This, the fact that you're seeing like this big confusing event from multiple factions, multiple viewpoints. Really, really helped raise the intrigue for what is going on in that. But again, guys, check those spoiler talks if you've read it already. But until the last 200 pages or so, like I said, guys, everything is clear. And this has some of my favorite moments in the series up to date. There's some really, really great moments. If I was doing a top 10 moments in the series through the first 6 books, this might have 4 or 5. It's really that good, guys. This is everything that I've wanted from the series from go. Is finally feel like we have arrived. So yeah, the setup has me really, really excited for Reaper's Gale, and I'm still struggling, to connect with the 14th. And like I said, House of Chains, if you ever do a reread, I think that's the one that would benefit me the most. Not that I would ever do this, but look, guys, I love where the series is headed right now. I'm very, very excited with this trajectory, where we're going. Feels like it's been worth the journey, and that's what I wanted. I didn't care about this. Is it a media res or a media res? However you say that. I don't care about that storytelling format as long as you know where you're going, and you can look at it now and say, Mr. Erikson definitely knew where he was going. And that is why, guys, the Bonehunters has knocked off Deadhouse Gates as my favorite Malazan book up to this point. I wanted to give it like a week or two since I finished the book to really, really think about that. And yes, this is one of those that after I finish reading it, the arrow is only pointing up. I'm very excited about where this book went. Very excited about where we're going the rest of the way. And I hope you guys are still with me. I know it's a very, very small warband compared to where we were back in January, but we knew we'd lose some people along the way. But hey, if you're still with me and you're just a silent participator, that's fine. I'm just glad that I'm able to help you guys get through it, because I think that this is definitely a series that benefits in the buddy read format, because you can keep each other honest. You can bounce things off of them. And if you haven't yet, guys, jump on the Discord. We had a ton of conversation going through this book. Lots of people, really great, just wanting to help other people out that aren't understanding stuff. And us noobs, we have a newbies only thread on the Discord where we can ask all those rhetorical questions and not get the answers. It's really, really great. So guys, that was the Bonehunters wrapping up another Malazan book. Looking very much forward to Reaper's Gale. Are you? How did you feel about the book? Drop in the comments and let me know, and I will talk to you there.